pretty much a lot of the same position groups.
Yeah, pretty much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Challenging the Boys. I am your host, Stephen Chalicombe, and joined with me tonight is William and Joshua. And tonight, what we have for you guys is the bottom five position
Hmm.
groups on the Dallas Cowboys. Before we get too far into that, I did want to drop in there that, again, as we have previously mentioned, we are strongly uh, encouraging you guys to reach out to us about doing a fantasy football league. I don't know how to fucking word that anymore.
It's
Um,
pretty good.
hit us up on YouTube or on Twitter. Both of those pages are at Chally and the Boys or at ChallyATB. Uh, Feel free to let us know whether you want to do a free or a cash league. Um, and definitely just leave us your questions and comments and shit for our videos, and we'll get back to you guys. So
Yeah.
with all of that being said, let's get into our bottom five position groups for the Dallas Cowboys. And let's start it off with Josh tonight. Just changed up a little bit.
All
Joshua, why
right.
don't you take us away?
So my fifth worst position group
Yeah.
I have as offensive line.
Mm, okay. The entirety
Um,
of the line, left side, right side, interior, exterior,
just entirety,
whole thing. Fuck them.
the whole thing.
Okay.
Don't know if that screws up your lists, but
No. No, actually, so I have offensive line at 5 too. Um, and it's mainly just because of the amount of questions there are at the offensive line. Tyron Smith's health, Tyler Smith's, you know,
position
ability
change.
as a whole, right? Like we haven't seen him play at the NFL level.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is Tyler Biadasz going to take the next step? Is Terrence Steele a legitimate starting right tackle? Um, there's a lot of questions there. So yeah, I actually 100% agree with them. The entirety of the offensive line being at five, with the exception of I guess is Zach Martin. Will, why don't you give us your number five?
I have wide receiver.
Okay.
Um, and hearing you guys talk almost makes me want to change this, but I'll stick to it. I just, I don't know. I think James Washington's going to have a good year. I think Gallup's going to have a good year when he comes back. I trust CD Lamb's going to get numbers, but I don't know if they're going to be important at all.
Yeah.
Just because, man, I kind of, just the way he was hyped up when he got drafted, it was I thought he was going to be a lot better than he already is. I mean, he's had a really good first 2 years, but I really thought it was going to be more.
Hmm.
And so that's why I have them there. I mean, the rookie's going to be a nice player, hopefully, but we don't know nothing about him. But you know,
Yeah, I dig it. Stash four.
Well, for a lot of the same reasons, I have the wide receiver group at number four.
he,
Just, I mean, you know what you're getting with CeeDee Lamb, but outside of that, there's a lot more questions than answers. And I think if um, if a lot of those questions turn up on the wrong side of the coin for Dallas, you're going to see a repeat of what we saw in Dak's second year, where they had to go get Amari Cooper, something like that.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I got wide receiver at four also. Same exact reasons. I guess he'll just add in there. I don't want to underestimate James Washington, and I'm not saying he's gonna come in here and be like, the next fucking Des Bryant. Um, but his best year actually was with your boy like fucking Duck Rogers at quarterback. He was ripping off like 17, I think it was 17 to 19 yards a catch he averaged that year. Um,
When he didn't have a
he's
noodle arm thrown to him.
Well, I mean, that
Hey,
was that was the worst quarterback he had thrown to him, and that was actually his best year. Coincidence, whatever. I don't know the other circumstances in Pittsburgh at that time, of course, but um, I don't think he's necessarily a slouch. I do also want to throw in there, and we did kind of mention this when we did the Over and Under podcast, that uh, Dak has also historically never thrown more than 8 touchdowns to a singular receiver in a given year. So while I think some of CD's numbers might naturally go up just because he's the number one, even though he kind of was the number one last year, at least statistically, I don't think there's really reason to expect him to do a whole lot more than he did last year. And I think that could be bad news for Dallas, but we'll see. obviously I hope that's not the case, but statistics really say that, you know, don't
Dallas likes
expect
to spread the
CD
ball
to be
around.
the dominant number one. A lot of us really hope he's going to be.
Yeah, Dallas definitely likes to spread the ball around and not force
Yeah,
feed their top
yeah,
player.
100%. Which I do actually kind of really like that style of ball, but it's, you know, sometimes kind of boring. But what do you think?
Without throwing too much smoke, there's another Cowboy creator out there that happened to have like a statistic, a list of stuff about showing how he was really excited about how Michael Gallup was going to have a big year once he came back from injury because
Hmm.
in the previous year, he had lined up against the opposing corner, like the number one corner on the opposing team, like the eighth most times in his, out of all wide receivers in the league, right? Like, so, he lined up more times than, whatever. But like number 6 or number 5 on the list was actually James Washington.
Hmm.
So there's something to that. I mean, that's up to Kellen Moore to get the guys into positions, so they can, you can scheme that stuff up, whatever. Number one on the like way down on the list was like Cooper Cup, which is like a good thing for the Rams because they moved him into situations where he was covered against like linebackers more
Right.
than any other wide receiver. So that's like maybe that's something that the Cowboys need to work on too. Is like, can we get CeeDee Lamb in the middle of the field a little more often if we have Washington and Gallup on the outside because that's where those guys play.
Yeah.
We'll find out.
Yeah.
Oh shit, man! I just closed my notepad.
Really?
He ain't got no
Ignore it. What are
notes.
we on, 3?
Well, Will didn't go 4.
Oh, sorry, Will. Yeah, give us your 4. Good call. Good call.
My number 4 was tight end. While I do agree with Josh that Dalton Schultz is probably going to have some silly numbers here, after that is where I was worried about it. I think they do have capable NFL players, but I mean, we don't know we don't know anything about Ferguson,
Hmm.
and we really don't know too much about McCune either, or McEwen.
McEwen.
The
Yeah, you were right.
McCune, whatever. And even Sprinkle too. I mean, he's an NFL tight end, but what could we rely on them to do? So that's why I have them lower on the bottom. I do agree that Schultz can put up numbers, but I need to see something after that.
So I'd have to ask that because I don't necessarily disagree. I actually have tight end here as like an honorable mention, but I also don't know the answer to the question myself. So I'm interested what you would say. What more would you expect from the tight end room? Like realistically, you don't hit me with like, oh, Travis Kelce and Dalton Schultz. Like
Oh,
what
yeah,
more would
no.
you want?
So I don't think statistically they need to do anything else different than they did last year. I just think that they don't have the types of. I don't know. I'm old school, I guess. One of the tight ends needs to be able to block, and really none of them are great at blocking. I guess Sprinkle's probably the best blocker of the group, but you don't really want him on the field, in two tight end set because then the team,
Yeah,
you
you know
kind
you're not
of
throwing him the
show that you're
ball.
running the ball or whatever. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Okay. I'm
So
just
yeah,
curious.
it's mostly just that. I mean, yeah, can we just? I want to be able to run over some people, man. You know, let's open up some holes on the outside so Pollard can run for 90 yards.
Connor
That's what I'm
McGovern at
saying.
fullback, man.
Might be.
Just saying. It's happened. Okay, so now we're actually caught up now. Josh, take us away at 3.
Number 3, I kind of have a combo since I think it's the same sort of position. I have punt returner slash kick returner.
Okay.
Just because, I mean, you look at Dallas over, I don't know, forever. They don't usually get anything out of that group. It's just a fair catch and that. And I think they need to maybe just more philosophical, just change their thought process and take more risk there.
Okay.
So I think the position group is one of the worst on the team because they don't value it. There's like nothing that they do.
Well,
Fair. I'm gonna keep it with special teams as well, but I'm gonna go kicker here. I Similar reasons for some of the other position groups I said, with there's just questions there. Um, I I think they signed a dude a couple weeks ago, Harulahu, I'm probably butchering his last name. I'd have to ask my wife because I'm actually pretty sure the dude's Albanian. And fun fact, I guess my wife's
I
Albanian.
think it's like Kolaraju or something like
Whatever,
He was on
man.
he was on
It's
the team
not.
last year.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he was.
but he was cut and then.
One game with the Falcons against the Falcons, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he
sounds right.
kicked extra points only though.
So, I mean, it's not that I don't trust him, dude, but there's just questions, right? Like, is he
You
the
don't trust
guy?
him.
Is there going to be a kicking
They brought in
competition?
they brought in like a rookie guy to do it too.
Yeah,
Great. I don't even know his name.
I don't think
Have to look it up.
we need to though. That's I don't.
Well,
I assume they're not going into the season unless he just Dan Bailey's and just kicks like an animal.
right. So until we have our Dan Bailey again, I got
Right.
I was
questions.
gonna say he was on the team before Holaraju.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, yep.
Was it? I mean, I hate saying his last name because I got braces and it might not be pronounced right, but is it that dude Nagar?
No,
Okay.
that's somebody else.
Will, save me. What's your number 3?
I have
Get me outta
interior offensive line.
Interior, you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
I probably have them higher up on the list. But you got Zach Martin in there, guaranteed Hall of Fame. Let's go. So you kind of can't put him lower. But I mean, I like Tyler Smith, and I think Tyler Biotish is going to have a big year too. So I think this can definitely trend up. But until you see it, you got to see it.
The kicker's name is Jonathan Garibay.
Haven't heard that before. So I guess that's good, right? He's not a murderer or anything.
Not that we know of.
Yeah.
Yeah. But might be.
Okay. Stash number 2.
Number 2, I have defensive tackle.
My man. That's it.
Lots of.
That's it.
It's another group that Dallas does not really from a team sense take seriously. They just go to the bargain bin for it. So,
sometimes you get some fines there.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Number 2. I have linebacker. So with the exception of Micah Parsons, obviously, your Dallas is hoping Leighton Vander Esch returns to some semblance of his rookie year, which I do think is possible because he's not going to be asked to do a lot of the things he has been asked to do previously. So there is a chance of resurgence here.
Not playing with Jalen Smith.
What about Jalen Hurts?
That helps you along.
Because he's not playing with Jalen Smith.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, he's just not going to be asked to do things that are, your I guess essentially your number 1 linebacker would be asked to do, right? He's not going to necessarily be asked to shed blocks as much, or he shouldn't be, right? Which he did struggle at the last couple of years. And hopefully he's just chasing dudes coast to coast, and that's something he has been able to succeed at. But then even past Leighton Vander Esch, you're asking a very young Jabril Cox, who's coming off of an ACL tear, I believe, to be your number 3, who is going to get a lot of snaps. And that's not necessarily just on special teams, right? Like, he's going to get a lot of defensive snaps. And then even behind him, you got, rookies you're just hoping that are going to fill holes, mainly on special teams. But again, just dudes you haven't really seen on the field before. So I think there's a fuck ton of questions here. It's an extremely young group. But I do think it is a group that we could be talking about being in a top 5 in a couple of years. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
No, good. So I have interior defensive line as my number 2, so I agree. I kind of disagree, though. So I actually think that they have plenty of NFL players, and they've tried to invest. I just don't think they have any stars, or they don't have any walk right in and be a Pro Bowler type of guy. But I think they do have all guys in their team that should be in the NFL.
Yeah.
Like I think any of their players that got, if they had to cut one of the veterans to kind of maneuver this, I would get picked up.
They got backup players.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, but most players that get cut off of one team don't become starters on another team.
No, that's what I'm just saying. I'm just saying, realistically, they don't have a starter at defensive tackle. They're all backup players.
Yeah, they have like 3 or 4 good like rotational
I'm not
players.
saying they're not NFL players, but they
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
order.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. Like, I wouldn't necessarily. I know you're. Yeah, I mean, I to most extent agree. I mean, there's there's what 32 teams, 60, 64 players that start the two positions, give or take. I mean, there's a big drop off after the first couple of guys. You know what I mean? And somebody's got to start.
True. Somebody does have to start.
Yeah.
Stash number 1.
Well, it's already been said, but kicker. I mean, Dallas.
Yeah.
I mean, realistically, we don't know if they have an NFL kicker on their team right now. So
Could be you. I have defensive tackle. Again, this is an area Dallas has been gashed for the last fucking 20 years. Against the run. Um, as Will and or as pretty much all 3 of us have previously stated, they kind of just have a bunch of dudes who are really solid rotational players. They just don't have that stud right in the middle. I think that really could become Odigizua. He showed us a lot in his rookie year, especially against the run. He is effective against the pass as well. So, becoming more of a rotational player for him this year, I think will be pretty good with Gallimore's return and hopefully staying healthy. So
Oh,
hopefully, that'll give him some more time to, rest and be more explosive on the snaps he's playing type deal. We'll see. But until then, yeah, there's just, no real stud there in the middle. Nobody's afraid of Dallas's defensive tackles. I'll say, the edge sure can get pretty ugly for some other teams, but the defensive tackles, nobody's afraid of them.
yeah. I mean, I kind of figured we'd have the same positions, at the worst because that's kind of how it goes. But yeah, I mean, I pick kicker too. They don't have a kicker that's ever really done anything in the NFL. So how could you have him any higher than that? Uh, my opinion. I mean, maybe they. I mean, they this one of these guys might be good, but I've never seen him kick field goals. You know what I mean? So how can I? I can't rank him any higher.
Okay. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
that's it, I guess. Unless anybody has some safe rounds or alibis, anyone? No?
No, no, no.
Okay. I'll plug it again. Hit us up for some fantasy football this year. It's about 9 days away from training camp. I would assume we're probably going to try to get a league going probably around the 4th week of the preseason. So we can avoid drafting dudes who get fucking injured in the preseason because that's
Yeah.
aggravating. So definitely hit us up here on the channel at YouTube, which is Charlie and the Boys, or on Twitter, which is at CharlieATB. Give us your comments or questions. I'll get back to you, and we'll catch you guys next time. Peace.
See ya.